Charean, the great irony of this would be if he's not tradable because these civil lawsuits, 22 now and possibly more, have been filed and are moving through the court system. It's possible that the NFL would eventually put him on the commissioner exempt list. I wrote this today and I said it last week. Don't be shocked if he shows up, if he scraps the plan to not report, because if he does report and gets put on the commissioner exempt list, he gets paid in full for 2021 and loses no money and doesn't have to play. This is his way of not playing for the Texans and still getting paid. And I'm sure that the Texans will regard that as an unfair outcome, but that's how the paid leave procedures work. I don't like the paid leave procedures. I don't think it's good for anybody. It just allows the NFL to not have players who are facing charges that have not yet been resolved on TV screens and us in a position where we have to talk about them during games, after games, before games, throughout the season. It's a way to take the heat out of a hot kitchen, but it's also a way for Deshaun Watson to get paid at a time when he otherwise was not going to show up for the Houston Texans this year. Charean, that could be where this is heading.
Gosh, Mike, you think about the timeline with Deshaun Watson. I mean, think back to September when he signs the huge contract, right? He leads the league in passing, but the Texans are terrible. He comes out the day after the season or right after the last game and criticizes, you know, the entire Texans organization and says, here's what we need. And then all of a sudden he asks for a trade. And now here we are with him being untradeable. You just can't fathom really what's happened over the last few months. I mean, it's not even been a year to go from being a well-paid star of a team that thinks they're going to have him forever and he's going to lead them to multiple championships to now basically being untradeable and the team doesn't want you either. Where does your future land? And no one knows that right now. You talk about not knowing what somebody's future is. I think it's absolutely no one knows right now what Deshaun Watson's future is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miles Simmons and I talked about this last week, and I'm just going to summarize this briefly for anyone who missed it. I want to write something about it at PFT as to how these processes will play out with 22 lawsuits. But assuming that they do one trial ultimately, potentially for each lawsuit, it's possible some would be resolved, others will go forward. Who knows? You've got 22 different individuals who have their own rights and their own decisions that they can make as to how they go about moving forward with these cases and these claims. You could have, in theory, 22 trials. And when you consider the lower standard of proof, the he said, she said nature of these allegations, if you have 22 trials, Charean, this is the equivalent of 22 coin flips all coming up your way. That's how much of a crapshoot taking a case to trial is. The judge, the jury, so many factors that come into it, so much uncertainty. The chances of winning every single one of those for Deshaun Watson are very, very, very small. As long as you have basic testimony that doesn't get thrown out of court, that gets put in front of a jury, you never know which jury is going to respond well to Deshaun Watson and which one won't. That's what he's facing if he doesn't find a way to make this situation right with a settlement of as many of these claims as possible, if not all of them, and his career potentially is going to be put on hold until these cases are resolved, which could take up to really 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Mike how long this potentially could take, because we know nothing moves fast through the court system. So wouldn't it be beneficial to him to make these things go away, to settle all 22 of these cases?
Look, this is going to take a while, and the question becomes, what will the NFL do if there's not criminal charges, but if there are civil charges, if there are this many? Antonio Brown's played last year. Plenty of guys play with civil lawsuits pending, but with 22 of them, what will the NFL do? And if any traction happens with these criminal cases, that's the kind of thing that could mean that Deshaun Watson doesn't play again at all until this all gets resolved. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.